Do you know why Gaddafi was killed? It wasn't about democracy. It wasn't about human rights. It was because he wanted to create a gold-backed African currency and sell oil outside the dollar system. Do you know why Iraq was invaded? Weapons of mass destruction? No. Saddam announced he would sell oil in euros. Do you know why Iran is sanctioned, threatened, isolated? Because they built an oil bourse that trades in currencies other than dollars. I know this because I was there, inside the Saudi financial system, watching as country after country tried to break free from the petrodollar and got destroyed for it. This is the most powerful system in the world. More powerful than any military, more powerful than any government, because it's not about oil, it's about control. And in 1974, the United States and Saudi Arabia made a deal that gave them that control. Forever. My name is Ahmed, and for 15 years I worked inside the machine. Today I'm going to tell you everything. Let me take you back. August 15th, 1971. I wasn't born yet, but this date would define my entire career. This was the day President Richard Nixon walked into the Oval Office and made an announcement that would reshape the global economy forever. I have directed Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold. That's it. One sentence. And with those words, Nixon destroyed the Bretton Woods system that had governed international finance since World War II. You need to understand what this meant. Since 1944, every major currency in the world was pegged to the US dollar. And the dollar was backed by gold. $35 per ounce. Fixed. Guaranteed. If you had dollars, you could exchange them for actual gold from the US Treasury. This made the dollar the world's reserve currency. Countries needed dollars to trade internationally. Central banks held dollars as reserves. The dollar was as good as gold. But there was a problem. A massive problem. The Vietnam War was bleeding America dry. The government was printing more and more dollars to finance the war. And other countries started to notice. They started doing the math. They realized there wasn't enough gold in Fort Knox to back all the dollars America had printed. France was the first to call the bluff. Charles de Gaulle sent a French Navy destroyer to New York Harbor in 1965 to literally collect France's gold. He was converting dollars back to gold as fast as possible. Other countries started to follow. America was facing a crisis. They could either stop printing money, end the war, face economic recession. B, or break the promise. Admit there isn't enough gold, and hope the world still accepts dollars. Nixon chose option B. And just like that, the dollar was no longer backed by anything tangible. It was backed by trust, faith, the belief that the United States would remain powerful enough that people would keep accepting dollars. But Nixon knew something. This is where my story really begins. Because 3 years after Nixon's announcement, something happened in secret. Something that most people still don't understand today. June 1974. Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger stepped off a plane into the scorching desert heat. He wasn't here for a diplomatic photo op. He was here to make a deal. The most important deal in modern economic history. The meeting was classified. No press. No public records. Just American officials and Saudi princes, sitting in an air-conditioned room, redesigning the global financial system. Here's what they agreed. Saudi Arabia would sell all of its oil exclusively in US dollars. Not gold. Not their own currency. Only dollars. Invest billions of their oil profits back into US Treasury bonds and securities. Use their influence in OPEC to ensure other oil-producing nations did the same. In return, the United States would provide Saudi Arabia with military protection and weapons. Guarantee the Saudi royal family's power and security. Look the other way on, let's say, domestic policies. Think about the brilliance of this arrangement. Suddenly, every country in the world needed US dollars. Not to trade with America, but to buy oil, to power their economies, to keep their lights on. If you're Japan and you need oil, you can't pay in yen. You need dollars. If you're Germany and you need oil, you can't pay in Deutsche Marks. You need dollars. If you're Brazil, South Korea, India, anyone, you need dollars. This meant every country had to export goods to America to earn dollars, keep large dollar reserves in their central banks, buy U.S. Treasury bonds, which means lending money to the U.S. government. The genius of this system? America could print as many dollars as they wanted, because the world was forced to use them anyway. You want oil? You need our currency. End of story. Fast forward to 2003. This is when I entered the system. I had just completed my master's degree in economics from London School of Economics. Young, ambitious, full of ideas about how to modernize Saudi Arabia's economy. I thought I was going to help my country. I was hired by the Saudi Ministry of Finance as an economic analyst. My job? Track oil revenues, manage currency reserves, coordinate with ARAMCO on financial projections. On my first day, my supervisor took me to a secure room. He handed me a thick binder marked Confidential Petrodollar Agreements. Read this, he said. Everything you think you know about how oil markets work, it's wrong. This is how it really works. I spent the next 6 hours reading, and with every page, I felt my understanding of global economics completely transform. The documents detailed everything. The 1974 agreement, the follow-up deals in 1975, the secret protocols, the mechanisms through which Saudi oil money flowed back into U.S. financial markets. Here's what I learned. Saudi Arabia wasn't just selling oil for dollars. We were required to recycle those dollars back into the American financial system. Specifically, U.S. Treasury securities, government debt, U.S. corporate bonds, U.S. real estate, U.S. military equipment. In 2003 alone, Saudi Arabia held over $400 billion in U.S. Treasury securities. By the time I left in 2018, it was over $800 billion. Think about what this means. Saudi Arabia was lending hundreds of billions of dollars to the U.S. government at low interest rates, while the U.S. military protected our regime and sold us weapons. It was a closed loop, perfect system. Saudi Arabia got security. America got infinite financing for its debt. And the dollar remained the world's reserve currency. But there was something else in those documents. Something that made my blood run cold. A list of countries that had attempted to break free from the petrodollar system. And next to each country's name, there was a date. The date they were invaded, sanctioned, or destroyed. Let me tell you about that list, because this is where the conspiracy becomes reality. Iraq 2000. In November 2000, Saddam Hussein made an announcement. Iraq would begin selling its oil in euros instead of dollars. He called it a move against American currency imperialism. The impact was immediate. If Iraq, which had massive oil reserves, started accepting euros, other OPEC nations might follow. The petrodollar system could unravel. I remember reading the internal memos at the ministry. There was panic. Not because of Saddam himself, but because of the precedent. If one domino falls, we all know what happened next. March 2003, the United States invaded Iraq. The official reason? Weapons of mass destruction. Weapons that were never found. But here's what did happen after the invasion. In June 2003, Iraq's oil sales were immediately switched back to US dollars. First order of business. Before rebuilding infrastructure, before establishing a new government, switch back to dollars. Coincidence? You tell me. Libya 2009. Muammar Gaddafi was more ambitious. He didn't just want to sell oil in a different currency. He wanted to create an entirely new currency for Africa. The Gold Dinar. A gold-backed currency that would be used for all oil transactions across Africa. He had convinced several African nations to join. He had stockpiled 144 tons of gold to back it. I saw the classified briefings. The Americans were furious. Kissinger's system was being threatened again. If Africa created its own gold-backed currency for oil, dozens of nations would abandon the dollar. In 2011, NATO intervened in Libya's civil war. Gaddafi was killed, captured, beaten, and executed in the street. The gold disappeared. The Gold Dinar project? Dead. Libya's new government? They sell oil in US dollars, of course.
Iran ongoing.
Iran learned from Iraq and Libya. They knew direct confrontation meant destruction, so they've been slowly, carefully building alternatives. In 2008, Iran opened the Iranian oil bourse, a commodities exchange where oil could be traded in currencies other than dollars.
Euro.
Yuan, rubles, anything but dollars. The American response? The most comprehensive sanctions in history, frozen assets, banking restrictions, military threats, economic warfare designed to cripple Iran's economy until they abandoned the bourse. I watched from inside the Saudi ministry as we were pressured to increase our oil production every time Iran was sanctioned. The goal? Keep oil prices low. Make Iran's economy suffer even more. This is the power of the petrodollar system. It's not just economics. It's geopolitical control. And any country that challenges it gets destroyed. Now, I want to tell you something that most people don't understand. Something that kept me awake at night during my years in Riyadh. Saudi Arabia isn't the beneficiary of this system. We're prisoners of it. Let me explain. In 2015, I was promoted to Senior Economic Advisor. This gave me access to even more classified information, including long-term strategic planning documents. One night, during Ramadan, I was reviewing a 50-year economic forecast, and I noticed something terrifying. The document acknowledged that Saudi Arabia's oil reserves would eventually decline. Maybe in 30 years, maybe 50, but it was inevitable. And when the oil runs out, the document was clear. The petrodollar arrangement must be maintained at all costs, even if it requires alternative arrangements. I asked my supervisor what alternative arrangements meant. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Ahmed, do you know what would happen if Saudi Arabia announced tomorrow that we're selling oil in Chinese yuan instead of dollars?" I shook my head. The American military would be here within 48 hours. Not to protect us, to replace us. The royal family would be gone. A new government would be installed. One that accepts dollars. This was the trap. Saudi Arabia had become so dependent on American military protection that we couldn't leave the system even if we wanted to. Our entire economy was structured around selling oil for dollars, investing those dollars in U.S. assets, buying U.S. weapons with those dollars, relying on U.S. military to protect the regime. If we broke any part of this cycle, the whole arrangement collapsed. And with it, the royal family's power. We weren't partners with America. We were hostages. But something changed around 2015. A new player entered the game. One powerful enough to challenge the petrodollar system. China. I started noticing it in the meetings. Chinese delegations visiting Riyadh more frequently. Massive infrastructure deals. The Belt and Road Initiative. Chinese companies investing billions in Saudi projects. And then, in 2016, something unprecedented happened. A secret proposal came to the ministry. From China. They wanted to buy Saudi oil. But not in dollars. In yuan. The proposal was elegant. China would become Saudi Arabia's largest oil customer. Payments would be made in yuan. Saudi Arabia could use those yuan to invest in Chinese projects, buy Chinese goods, or convert to gold through the Shanghai Gold Exchange. China would provide alternative military technology and support. This was it. The alternative we'd been dreaming about. A way out of the American trap. But there was a problem. Actually, several problems. First, the yuan wasn't fully convertible. Unlike dollars, you couldn't use yuan everywhere in the world. Second, Chinese financial markets weren't as deep as American markets. Where would we invest hundreds of billions of yuan? Third, and this was the big one, could China actually protect Saudi Arabia if America turned hostile? The debates in the ministry were intense. The older generation, who built their careers on the petrodollar system, were terrified of change. The younger economists like me saw an opportunity. In the end, Saudi Arabia made a compromise. We would continue selling most of our oil in dollars to keep America happy, but start accepting yuan for oil sales to China to test the waters. slowly diversify our reserves to include more yuan, euros, and even gold. It was a careful balancing act. We were preparing for a post-petrodollar world, but we couldn't move too fast. Not yet. Then 2022 happened, and everything accelerated.
Russia invadait d'Ukraine.
The West responded with unprecedented sanctions. Russian banks were cut off from SWIFT, the international payment system. Russian dollar reserves were frozen. Over $300 billion in Russian assets just confiscated. This sent shockwaves through every country that held dollar reserves, including Saudi Arabia. I was in an emergency meeting at the ministry when the news broke about the frozen Russian assets. One of the princes said something that captured everyone's fear. If they can do this to Russia, they can do it to us. Think about it. Saudi Arabia held hundreds of billions in U.S. Treasury bonds. What if we angered the Americans? What if we made a strategic mistake? Could they freeze our assets too? Just like that? Suddenly, the petrodollar system didn't feel like a partnership. It felt like a gun to our head. Russia's response was even more significant. They announced they would sell oil and gas to friendly countries in rubles, yuan, or local currencies. No more dollars. And here's the thing, Russia got away with it. Yes, they faced sanctions. Yes, their economy suffered. But they weren't invaded. They weren't destroyed. Because Russia has nuclear weapons and a powerful military. The lesson was clear. If you're strong enough, you can challenge the petrodollar. This emboldened other countries. Saudi Arabia and China expanded their yuan for oil arrangements. India started buying Russian oil in rubles. The UAE began accepting yuan for oil sales. The cracks in the petrodollar system were growing. In 2018, something happened that made me question everything I was doing. Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist, he walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul and never walked out. I didn't know Khashoggi personally, but I knew what he represented. Dissent, questions, challenging the narrative. The official line from the government was that it was a rogue operation, an accident, but everyone inside the system knew better. This was a message. Step out of line and you disappear. I started thinking about my own role in all of this. I was helping maintain a system that kept dictators in power, financed endless wars, concentrated wealth in the hands of a few royal families, destroyed any country that dared to challenge it. Was this really helping my country? Or was I just a cog in a machine that enriched princes while ordinary Saudis struggled? The final straw came during a meeting in late 2018. We were discussing Vision 2030, the Saudi plan to diversify away from oil. A young analyst presented a report showing that the petrodollar system was preventing real economic reform. One of the senior princes interrupted him. We will never truly diversify from oil. The Americans won't let us. Our job is to keep pumping oil for dollars. Forever. That's the deal. In that moment, I realized we were trapped. And we would always be trapped, unless something fundamentally changed about the global power structure. I submitted my resignation 3 months later. My supervisor tried to convince me to stay. He said I was being emotional, that I didn't understand the bigger picture. But I did understand. That was the problem. So where does this leave us? What's the future of the petrodollar system? Honestly, I think it's dying. Slowly, but dying. Here are the trends I'm watching. 1. The rise of BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They're building alternative payment systems. The BRICS are discussing a new reserve currency, not to replace the dollar immediately, but to create options. In 2023, Saudi Arabia and Iran both applied to join BRICS. Think about that. The heart of the petrodollar system considering membership in an alliance designed to challenge dollar dominance. 2. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Countries are developing digital currencies that can settle international transactions instantly, without dollars, without SWIFT, without American oversight. China's digital yuan is already being tested for cross-border oil payments. If successful, this could bypass the dollar entirely. 3. Gold making a comeback. Central banks are buying gold at the fastest pace since 1967. Why? Because gold can't be frozen, sanctioned, or printed into oblivion. Russia, China, India, Turkey, they're all stockpiling gold, preparing for a world where dollars aren't the only game in town. For energy transition, here's the irony. The push toward renewable energy might do what Gaddafi and Saddam couldn't. If the world needs less oil, the petrodollar system loses its leverage. Solar panels and electric cars don't care what currency you use. Now, you might be thinking, Ahmed, this is all very interesting, but I'm not a central banker. I'm not trading oil. Why should I care about the petrodollar? Here's why. Your savings are at risk. The petrodollar system is the only reason the US can print trillions of dollars without immediate hyperinflation. Because the world needs those dollars for oil. But if that changes, if countries start trading oil in yuan, euros, or gold, the demand for dollars drops. And suddenly, all those trillions of printed dollars come flooding back to America. That's when you see inflation. Real inflation. The kind that destroys savings and pensions. Your job might be at risk. The American economy has been built on the privilege of printing the world's reserve currency. Cheap imports, endless debt, trade deficits that don't matter. But that only works as long as the world accepts dollars. If the petrodollar system collapses, America would have to actually compete like everyone else. No more printing money to solve problems. Wars become more likely. History shows us what happens when empires lose their economic leverage. They use military force instead. The more the petrodollar system weakens, the more likely we'll see conflicts over resources, currency systems, and spheres of influence. But there's also opportunity. If you understand this system, you can protect yourself. Here's what I'm doing. Diversifying out of pure dollar assets. I hold some euros, some gold, some Bitcoin. Not because I'm anti-American, but because I'm anti-fragile. Investing in hard assets, real estate, commodities, things that have value regardless of what currency is dominant. Learning about alternative systems. Understanding how cryptocurrency, digital currencies, and new payment systems work. Because one of them might be the future. Staying informed. Watching the trends. When you see countries making moves away from dollars, pay attention. It's not just news. It's a warning signal. Let me bring this full circle. When I started working in the Saudi Ministry of Finance, I thought the petrodollar system was permanent. Unshakable. The natural order of things. 15 years later, I watched it start to crumble. Not from some dramatic revolution, but from 1,000 small cracks. Russia selling oil in rubles. China buying Saudi oil in yuan. India settling trades in rupees. BRICS building alternatives. Central banks buying gold instead of treasury bonds. Each crack is small, but together, they're breaking the foundation. The question isn't whether the petrodollar system will end. The question is, what comes next? Will it be a multipolar system with several reserve currencies? Will it be a new gold-backed system? Will it be cryptocurrency? Or will America fight to maintain dollar dominance, no matter the cost? I don't have all the answers, but I know this: the system I saw from the inside is changing. And when it finally breaks, it will reshape the global economy in ways we can barely imagine. The countries that adapt will thrive. The countries that cling to the old system will suffer. And the people who see it coming, they'll be the ones who protect their wealth and their future. So what do you think? Did this change your perspective on oil prices, on American foreign policy, on why certain countries get invaded while others don't? Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Do you think the petrodollar system is collapsing? Or am I being too dramatic? And if you found this video valuable, if you learned something you didn't know before, please hit that like button. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to understand how the global financial system really works. Because knowledge is power. And understanding the petrodollar is understanding one of the most important mechanisms in the modern world. My name is Ahmed. I spent 15 years inside the machine. And this is the truth they don't want you to know. Thanks for watching. And remember, question everything. Follow the money. And always think for yourself. See you in the next one.